Hey guys, this is Srinath for Chess24. Today we are going to look at the game of the day from the round 5 of Tata Steel Masters Vacancy between Giri and Hari. Giri had the white pieces and started off with d4, d5, c4. This is the starting position of the Queen's Gambit. Now, if black takes on c4, then it's the Queen's Gambit accepted, and if black plays e6, then it's the Queen's Gambit declined. Hari Krishna went for the Queen's Gambit accepted. Uh, Ironically, this is also the opening suggested by Anish wife Sopiko for her chessable course, the Queen's Gambit accepted lifetime repertoire. The game continued with e4. E4 is probably a slightly more exciting way to play against the Queen's Gambit accepted. White has two ways of taking back the pawn on c4 after dc4. One is with the pawn to e3, and one is with the pawn to e4. And in some cases, white begins with knight f3 so as to prevent any ideas with e5. So that, for example, in the game itself, the game continued with e4 and e5, and white is not really in a position to take d into e5 because that would mess up white's coordination and development. So e4, and already we have a deviation from the recommendation in Sopiko's repertoire, which uh, which goes along a very interesting variation with b5, a4, c6, takes, and now knight c3, attacking this pawn, a6, knight b5, and taking advantage of the pin on the a file, takes, rook 8, bishop b7, rook a1, and the variation goes on. This is a very, very interesting branch, a very complex branch, and if you want to check out more, do check so because lifetime repertoire on Chessable. The game itself continued with e5, knight f3, ed4, bishop c4, knight c6, and castle. Black is a pawn up for the moment, but white retains a lot of compensation. There are two ways in which white usually gets back this pawn. One is just with the queen to b3, attacking f7 and b7 and taking back one of the pawns. The other standard way is to get a3 and b4, which also works quite well for white in general, and getting back this pawn on d4, a3, b4, bishop b2, knight d2, knight b3 if necessary, bishop e6, and now knight d2 is already slightly. It's not the most popular move in this position. Slightly going off the familiar track. And Hari Krishna played the next move after 11 minutes. He played bishop d6. In this position, there have been a few other games. Raja himself has played this with black. He went queen f6. The point being that um, black can reply to queen b3 with long castle. And if white goes a3 b4 in the usual way, then black can just develop knight e7, knight g6, bishop d6. That's kind of how the game between Grischuk and Raja went, which ended in a draw. Bishop d6 is a natural developing move, and here Anish replied after 22 minutes, most likely recollecting what he knows here. He played queen b3, attacking e6 and b7 at once, and black is happy to give back the pawn and retain his d4 pawn instead, which ended up playing a very useful role in securing the result of the game. Queen b7, rook b8, queen a6, knight e7. At the outset, it looks like black is completely comfortable here. Black has this very nice pawn on d4, which is a passed pawn at the moment. Although it's not going to queen immediately in the middle game, the passes are usually much more useful in the end game. But In this case, it still is a very valuable source of counterplay. So it looks like black is completely comfortable. White continues with a3, castle b4, the typical idea in this variation of the queen's gambit accepted. The idea is bishop b2, trying to take the d4 pawn. Hari Krishna starts preparing for the defense of this d4 pawn, and also advancing his pieces in the meanwhile. Bishop g4, bishop f4. It looks like black has a lot of counterplay here. Black's position looks very promising, but the problem is the exact way to capitalize this is not at all easy to find. The pieces all look very active at the moment, but after g3, for example, this bishop has to go back, at least in terms of in human terms of thinking. Right now, the e5 square is very important from a strategic point of view, because if black can get one of his knights to e5, then he takes control of a lot of squares in the chessboard and also disrupts white's coordination. So Anish plays rook e1. One of the ideas is to get g3 and then get e5. And here black had something very, very strong, something which is maybe easy to see for a computer and almost impossible to see for a human. Knight g6, g3, and now knight e5. Just sacrificing the f4 bishop. Knight e5, knight e5, gf4, knight f3 check, knight f3, bishop f3. And the point is, in the end position, even though black is a piece down, black has uh, black has this devastating threats against the white's king, with queen g4 coming up. And if white plays f5, then black can play queen e7, queen g5, and create these threats against white's king. White still manages to defend, but by losing a lot in the process, and black has a very big advantage here. But again, these things are probably will never be found over the board unless the players already know it by in terms of their opening preparation. So Hari Krishna played the more human queen d6, and Anish took the opportunity to take control of the e5 squares, put it beyond the axis of the black knights, and also take some control of the increase some control of the position himself. Hari just came back queen d7. Queen g6 was another option here, making possibly a bit too adventurous. The problem is white just transfers his bishop to e4 here, and any threats of black on the king side is completely neutralized. And if black takes the pawn on e5 with knight e5, then after bishop d4, white has pretty much everything under control, because black doesn't really win a piece after knight f3 check. Knight f3, bishop f3, bishop f3, queen f3. At the end of this variation, the e7 knight is hanging. And in the final position, the c7, a7 pawns are weak. The black bishop on h6 is not ideally placed. And black's pieces are lacking coordination, and his pawns are too weak. So white is just clearly better here. So queen d7 was the wiser solution. And here Anish starts playing very strongly and very precisely. He went bishop f1, knight g6, bishop to g2, rook b6, and now queen f1. A very sensible move, because if the queen goes to either c4 or d3, the queen can constantly come under threat after some bishop f3 and knight e5. So queen f1, at the moment it looks passive, but the queen can come back like a spring. Whereas with queen f1, the threat is h3, and white can start pushing away black's pieces, which look active at the moment. Around this time, I think white starts to take over the control of the game a bit. And if black tries to take this pawn, because the D2 knight is hanging, the F3 knight is protecting D2 and E5. So it could look tempting to try and take this pawn, but after takes rook E5, bishop D2, H3. The bishop has to move away from this H5 D1 diagonal, and when he moves away with something like bishop E6, then after rook D1, white wins back this D4 pawn with very centralized pieces and much better piece activity and a better position in general, a better piece activity, better pawn structure, and all the strategic features in favor of white. So Hari Krishna went for a5, b5, bishop d2, knight d2, knight e5. Black is again a pawn up, but after a4, white has a lot of compensation. He has the pair of bishops, and in general, these two knights, which look centralized, are not exactly in their optimal places. They're not functioning to their optimal capacity. The late legendary trainer Mark Dvoretsky would call this a superfluous piece. Essentially, two knights doing the task of what one knight could do. It looks like they are coordinated and supporting each other, but they are not. They are being more of a liability, being together like this. Bishop f5. Hari Krishna gains a tempo and also threatens bishop d3. So, although white has the strategic triumphs, black has this d4 pawn, which can be very dangerous, coming very quickly to d1 in the space of three moves. Knight e4, the logical move to prevent bishop d3, d3, and here I think white should have gone. Here, paradoxically, knight d2 is very strong. It Black's threats in this position are basically to go either d2 or knight c4. There are a lot of variations where these two moves play a key role in creating threats against white, and knight d2 prevents both these things. It takes care that it blockades the d pawn securely, and also ensures that any ideas with knight c4 is not easy to execute. And white intends to continue with h3 and f4, after which the e5 knight is also forced to move from its active post. And here I think white had a chance of taking over, but knight d2, playing knight d2 back just after having played knight e4 is not at all an easy thing to do. And rook d1 is perfectly logical, threatening f4 and threatening to win the d3 pawn. Rook d8, and this is the point when I think some parts of social media started going crazy, suggesting that rook e3 is actually winning. A logical move again, because white wants to prevent knight c4, and white increases control of the d3 square, so knight c4 can be met by rook d3. But it's not at all clear. It's incredibly complex. It's not easy to understand even when you're looking at this with stockfish. For example, queen e7, queen e1, f6. Uh, Black doesn't mind losing this knight for the moment, but wants to keep the d3 pawn alive and keep all the other pieces active in the position. And after f4, there's this interesting sacrifice with rook e6, f e5, knight e5, and the position is completely chaotic. It's not at all clear. Although Stockfish gives a very high value, I think it doesn't make sense to take these values in absolute terms. It's not an exact indication of how the players are feeling in this position. And to me, this looks complex even at this point. Therefore, it wouldn't have been practically possible for the players at the board to figure this out and be absolutely sure of the evaluation like stockfishes. Anish continued bishop c3, logical move, knight c4, and now knight d2. White essentially just tries to take the a5 pawn, but on the other hand, black has this d3 pawn standing. So the position remains double-edged, and here Anish surprised, I think, a lot of people with a draw offer. But again, understandable. Both the players were having less time at this point, and the position still remains complex. The game could have perhaps continued with something like knight d2, rook d2, and something like rook e6, abandoning the a5 pawn, but ensuring that black's pieces remain active and black tries to push this d3 pawn further. And after rook e6, queen e6, bishop into a5, queen c4. This looks scary for white, to be honest. Black threatens something like rook e8, rook e2, and the d pawn looks menacing. White can advance his a pawn, and if white gets this faster, then white is doing well in the position. But yeah, it's double edged and mutually scary. And after knight d2, the game ended in a unexpectedly short draw. So that's all we have for the game of the day today. Thank you.